Hello again, one and all. Welcome to the official PodStance podcast. I'm still really bad at saying I need to sort out a better name, but I quite like the name. I'm going to keep it. No, I'm going to keep it. Whatever. Sidetrack. Welcome back to episode 4. This is just another quick intro before we get started. This time I have my good friend, multi-instrumentalist and general artist Carlo Villa in, talking about his favourite album, or one of his favourite albums of all time. It was a pretty incredible chat, actually. We got into details about our past, how we met, a number of projects that we've gotten involved in, and he went into some extreme detail into his album in question and the sort of nostalgia and the melancholy and the general vibe that you get from it, his childhood, some stuff he brings up about modern, sort of even the mundane memories and stuff that it evokes, and I think it's probably my favourite episode so far. It's been a really nice conversation just to catch up and see the projects he's getting up to. Obviously he's got his own things going on. He's got a few releases coming up that he'll talk about in due course. But yeah, it's been a really interesting one. I think you guys will get a lot out of it, especially if you're a fan of the 80s. So for slightly more older members of the listening team, or if you're just a fan of the 80s music, who knows? This will definitely be one for you. Very proud of it, as he is with a lot of his work, a lot of our past work as well. We're really happy with, but it is a bit of a longer one, so I won't delve into an intro too much. So I'm hoping you're going to enjoy it as much as I did recording it, and I'll see you on the other side. Well, one thing that people won't know is, well, people might know, who knows, is that was the word knows quite a lot.
Knows.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows indeed. One thing that I think is especially fun in the intro is knowing that the curator of the music that starts this whole thing off is sat, what, a foot away
about
from
an
me?
inch away from you?
The inches at the knees.
About
and
an
then
inch away.
arse to arse about at least a foot. That's the whole thing. But I mean, I stand by it. Your music is class.
Thank you very much.
That's why
Nick.
I use it as an intro.
It is a pleasure for you to use my music as an intro.
Well,
I
tell
really
you,
do mean that.
It's a pleasure for you to be here.
Thank you very much.
Now that we're ongoing, ready and raring to go. For those who are now listening in, this is the latest episode, and I've got a second guest in who isn't related to me and is an artist.
Hello, everyone.
Makes his own music. I've talked about you a lot, but this is Mr. Carlo Villa, friend, famous individual, and
soon to be, what maybe.
Soon to be. Well, I mean, I'd like to think that you've got a level of fame going on, don't you think?
That's very kind of you to say. No, but maybe in the future. I will say this. I think I'm very happy with all the music I've done so far. And it's only going to get better from here. So
you think?
I hope so. And it's a pleasure to be on the podcast and you know, talking about my favourite album.
Yes.
The album that saved my life. Nice segue there. Welcome.
You're welcome for that one. Into it. Well, obviously, yeah, we've got a lot to get through today. We've been discussing it all day as to what might come up.
Yeah.
But if we're going straight into it, the album that you've picked is much like the one before, not one... It's one that I expected, but it isn't specifically... This album in question is not one that... I thought the artist was pretty bang on what I thought, but the album in question I was not entirely sure.
I mean, personally, I would say, like, for those of you who know me, if anyone is listening who knows me, it's pretty obvious. It's a pretty obvious choice for me. The album is Hatful of Hollow by the Smiths, which is... It's a compilation album of 16 tracks, but I feel that it's one of the Smiths' encompassing works. It's, you know, if you want to get into the band The Smiths, I'd say Hatful of Hollow is the best place to start, and it is for me the album that kicked off pretty much my creative journey into music, I would say.
Of which there's been a number of years now.
Yeah, so I owe this album a lot. I owe it a lot, to be honest.
And would you say that the album in question is what... Well, you say it's what started off your creative venture, as it were. But I've known you for, 12 years now? 10 to 12 years? God, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's quite long.
And you always seem to have, a creative spark, a creative flow. I mean, a lot of the things you've done in your life, which we'll get into in the sort of second half of this, is inherently creative. You know, we were both drama students.
Yeah.
We were both sort of active music listeners and performers. Do you think that the Smiths this album specifically came in a bit later in life, but do you think it was playing a role even before then?
Maybe. Well, the fun fact about the Smiths and I is apparently my parents used to play a lot of Smiths tracks to me when I was 3, 4, 5.
345.
304. I was 345. Needless to say, I'm older now. But yeah, so I was very young, and I don't really remember them ever playing me the Smiths, but it must have sunk in. And I would say that, yeah, I think I've always been slightly creative, in as you said, drama, and I did like art but the Smiths for me, and this album in particular, and a couple of songs on this, I would say were the direct result, the direct cause, I should say, of me pursuing music as like a serious venture. The Smiths represent for me, me deciding to actually make music and not stop, not just write one song, but like decide to carry it on. And here we are years later, and I haven't given up yet, and I don't think I could. For me, like, I would say that some of the songs on this record gave me the confidence to actually express what was inside. Because when you're creative and you're young, I do believe that you can get a lot of shtick. When you're at school, you get the creative kids are always like bullied, and I don't, I'm not no exception really, but like
you and me both.
But the thing is, I would say, because of course, if you're creative and you want to express something, like people who don't do that or don't want to do that, often it's very easy to pick apart.
And it's like when we were at school, because we went to school together for a while.
We did.
There was always this, even later into the sort of sixth form years, and especially in the GCSE as well, there was always this stigma of academia. Like our school, like we both went to grammar schools in Kent, so it was, there's already a sort of stereotype that comes with that, the kind of person that would go there. But we always stuck to our guns. Like I started doing magic when I was 13, and I thinking that it would, give me more friends and I'd be more popular, and it did the opposite. But 10 years later, I've gained a skill out of it, and I think you did the same with all the drama that we did and the music that we started getting into.
Yeah.
Do you think that, especially at school, do you think that was where things, even though you get a lot of ridicule from it, and the quote unquote cool kids saying, "Oh, it's really dumb and stupid and silly."
I think as well, like as you mentioned, we both went to grammar school, and I originally wanted to be like a doctor. Yes. So when I think back to that now, it's like
it's not who you are.
It's ludicrous because I'm so far removed from that. But when we were at school, I know that you know this, but like if you showed any promise in science, they would like earmark you for that as your career path. They would almost decide your career for you. And again, like the Smiths and the Hatful of Hollow, which we will get into, after this long preamble. When we were at school, people that like the school almost decided your career. When it came to GCSEs, I didn't do as well in the sciences, I didn't do as well in my GCSEs as I would have hoped, and I was at a loss. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or could do, or what would be the thing that I was going to make, because science was always the thing that I was going to go into from like 11, and when you don't have that, there's a big hole of like purposelessness. And luckily, Hatful of Hollow came along and filled that, and all of a sudden, it's like a biblical. I saw the light; the scales fell from my eyes, and it's like that's what I wanted to do. As soon as I picked up the guitar, really, I realised, that was enough.
It's quite ironic in a way, because you give this almost hopeful nature to Hatful of Hollow, saying it suddenly gave me a goal, it suddenly gave me a purpose.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the tracks have a very depressing, almost painful realization to them, even in the titles alone.
Yeah.
Like if we go through sort of systematically, you go from William, it was nothing really. Again, a lot of these,
William, it was really nothing.
It was
William, it was really nothing.
What difference does it make? These things take time. This Charming Man, which is inherently probably their most famous song.
Yeah.
How Soon Is Now, Handsome Devil, Hand in Glove, Still Ill, Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now.
Heaven Knows I'm Miserable. The classic, I think.
Kind of about as on the nose as it gets. This Night Has Opened My Eyes. I guess that has a hopeful twinge to it.
Yeah. Accept Yourself certainly has a hopeful twinge to
You've
it.
Got Everything Now, Girl Afraid, Back to the Old House, Reel Around the Fountain, and the final Please, 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 Let Me Get What I Want.
Yes.
So there's a weird mix of themes and tones in there.
Yeah.
Do you think what would you say is probably the overall tone or the overall sort of message of the album?
It's hard to say because the music says one thing and the lyrics just say the absolute opposite. I mean, lyrically, it is. Yes, I would say it's more on the darker edge of things. It's more sad, but there's points in it which are very, very funny. I mean, the Smiths are. One of the things I love about them is they can be really funny without making gimmick songs. That's something, I mean, although Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, people would consider that maybe a more gimmicky song. But, like, it's so listenable that it's not a joke song. It's not like Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, you know, where the songs they are jokes almost. But the wit in the songs offsets the dark themes, which, again, make it so listenable. You can be in any mood. Because the music will also offset the darker lyric. Like, you know, This Night Has Opened My Eyes, you know, that's about abortion. That's like really...
Is it really?
Quite a dark subject.
I didn't know
really
that.
Dark subject. It's based off a play called, I think it's called A Taste of Honey. And it's about abortion. And it's pretty dark. It's one of the darker ones, you know. This night has opened my eyes and I will never sleep again. You know, it's like the twinge of the abortion hanging over the character in the song.
And that's a contentious topic.
Yeah.
On any day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, the one thing again about this album, it's not afraid to do those things, which I feel, you know, a lot of artists nowadays, and a lot of artists then again, what sets the Smiths apart was they weren't afraid to do more political, maybe more hard-edged, maybe more like statement songs, you know, which I think is rare, and it sets them in a time as well. It sets them very firmly, I think, in
the early 80s.
In the 80s, yeah. It's like,
and they come under the bracket technically of alternative rock, indie pop, and then probably the most prominent post-punk.
Yes.
How would you define them genre-wise?
Do you think that? Yeah. In terms of genre, like, so for me, I really don't like the term post-punk because what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Post-punk doesn't have any descriptor of the music. I would call them jangle pop in terms of music. Lyrically, I guess I don't know what lyrically it's just
some early emo thoughts and feelings,
absolutely.
Or even like politipunk.
Yeah, politipunk. That's an interesting thing.
The funny thing, modern phrase.
What's really funny is Morrissey, the lead singer. I know that he did certainly he was influenced by the punk because he grew up in the 70s. He definitely has a lot of those punk leanings of like make it, you know, the lyrics have to be important, and I think that's one of the important things with punk is like lyrics are important. The thing I always think about with the Smiths and there's a couple of other bands, but like for me, they embody good music and good lyrics, which I feel is so rare. Like there's a lot of in alternative music and in indie rock, there are a lot of sound bands. You listen for the sound. You're not really paying attention to the lyrics. I mean, again, there's so many exceptions that, you know, fair enough.
It's quite strange that you say that, though, because I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think now there's a weird disconnect between you can either have people talk about the tune of the song or like the instrumentation. Like I go into detail about the instrumentation for a lot of my posts, but then you also on the other side you have the lyrical content. They're never really intertwined. There's usually one that stands out more than the other.
Absolutely, yeah. It's you're listening for the, like, you know, when you listen to Bob Dylan. I mean, I don't listen for the music per se. I listen for the words, and there's a bunch of artists which you would consider poets. So they've got their instrument.
Auteurs.
Yeah, and I would say that Morrissey comes under the poet-ish vibe of songwriter. And if he didn't have Johnny Marr, you know, that's probably what he'd be. He'd be a lyricist, someone who, you know, the music is less and the lyrics are the thing that he's really selling. But because of Johnny Marr, and he's like, you know, for me, he is the guitarist that made me want to pick up the guitar, which is not uncommon. Like, there's so many people I'd say that my age who would say that Johnny Marr is the person that made them pick up the guitar. I know Noel Gallagher of the Oasis.
Fame.
He cites Johnny Marr as one of the people who made him want to pick up the guitar. So that's just how, and and Oasis don't really make music similar to the Smiths, which for me just shows how like wide-reaching the Smiths' influence is, that they can inspire like proper like rockers, I guess,
sort of make it. They almost defined the Britpop scene without even being around to see it.
Yeah,
well, I guess they were, but they weren't.
They were the precursor.
Yeah,
definitely. But like, yeah,
it's interesting because you say that there's this weird mix, like lyrically and musically. Do you think, in terms of the tone, the quote unquote music behind it has a different tone to the lyrics, or do you think it sort of melds together?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you listen to a lot of the songs, I could give you any example on the album Still Ill. The music is very jubilant, very quick, usually very melodic and very packed. There's a lot of notes going on. Whereas the lyrics are much more somber. Am I still ill? Does the body rule the mind, or does the mind rule the body? I don't know. Just some examples of brilliant lyrics. But the lyrics are slower, and they're less melodic. That's another thing which is really interesting, is the lyrics don't carry a lot of melody, which also makes them very easy to sing, which makes them like great, because when you're a kid, when I started playing the guitar, I didn't want to sing. I just wanted to play the guitar. But the Smiths enabled me to be able to sing because their songs weren't hard to sing, which is really important, because a lot of singers, they try and do the money note, and they try to go as high as possible, and for a male that's like quite hard to do. But for the Smith stuff, it was an easy entry into singing songs. I'd sing along in my bed. I could sing along if I wanted to, and I think that's really important, and especially if you're getting into music. And I've always liked music, really. Although never as much as I did when I discovered Hatful of Hollow.
You went to Still Ill as an example.
Yeah.
I presume that was just a sort of stab in the dark example. Do you have, of the 16 tracks, it's a hefty album, I think it's about 50 minutes long in total.
Yeah, it's long.
And it's, the fact that it's a compilation means that there's some repeats for previous albums. I think there was a number of their Radio 1 sessions, their first single, Hand in Glove, which I believe, was track number 7, I believe. Plus 2 new singles and then some B-sides in there as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a preference in terms of which song you say is the most impactful, or one that you have a favourite? Because I remember you saying to me earlier that there are some that you happly skip through.
Yeah,
still have
there's
a place in it.
It's a big album.
It is.
And it's mainly a collection of singles, and the ones that are included off their first album onto this album are the singles from it. And again, I think that proves as well that an album doesn't have to be story-led. A band can just have a kind of thematic thing, like, with the jubilant guitar and the sort of more dour lyrics, ties the whole product together, which I think is really a testament to the fact that albums don't have to be a good album. It doesn't have to be a concept album. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people think, okay, a good album, it'll be one with a theme, a story, an overarching narrative. This one doesn't need it, which I think is great. But there are skippable tracks for me. One I rarely listen to is Reel Around the Fountain. Not to say it's not a good song, it just for me, it's beside Please Please Let Me Get What I Want, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest songs ever written, and another one, Back to the Old House, and Reel Around the Fountain always, I could look past it when I listened to the album.
It fell in between two.
And because the album is so long, there's, it's
by the time it gets track 15,
I think you're gonna, it's like
the penultimate. You and then you have that grandiose ending of Please Please Please.
And you know what? Like, I don't think the fact that there's skippable tracks, or there's tracks that I would skip, is what I really mean, turn me off of this album. I've said to you before, really, but like, I don't believe in the perfect album, really.
That's what I was going to mention. Yeah, that was my next question.
I don't really believe in it. I think that there's brilliant albums, there's great albums, there's albums which massively impact you. This one for me is like, this is the encasement of all my memories from 16 to about 19. Just because that is true, it doesn't mean that it's the greatest album ever written.
It's very similar to what my brother said in in the previous episode with World Record. He still has songs that he's less akin to listening to. There's still some that he'll happily, quote unquote, skip through. But it is that encapsulation of a certain part of his life between the ages of around 15 to 16 and then 20 to 21. Do you think when you listened to it when you were younger and I think you listened to it last night?
Yeah, I did.
You?
I hadn't listened to it for a while, and because,
And then I asked, what's your album? And you went, I don't know.
It's funny because, you don't listen to these things you outgrow music. You just do, eventually. And I haven't listened to the Smiths for a while. Not to say that I would always say the Smiths are my favourite band, regardless of how often I listen to them. Personally, I haven't listened to them for a while because I've been discovering other music and working on my own. And I think that, like, to listen again was like opening up the box back into that time. It was, a window to the past. It absolutely holds all those memories. And I'm at the age now where I can't tell whether the music's good or not. It just hits for me because of those times.
Would you consider it a nostalgic album? Because the themes and the tone that come through might not necessarily give it a positive inflection, but because of the history that you've had with it... I
always feel happy listening to the Smiths.
Really?
Doesn't matter about the lyrics. It doesn't matter. I always feel happy. And for me, when I was listening... it was like coming home or like talking to an old friend,
Hello.
Hello again. But it was like that, going back to a younger version of myself that I can still completely recognise as well, which was nice. And God, it made me remember how brilliant they are as well. Just like listening to, as soon as the first track comes on, William, it was really nothing. The guitar work on that. I mean, it's 2 minutes and 15 seconds or something ridiculously short, and it just is jam-packed with some of the best guitar work or guitar riffs. And I mean, that one as well has a bit more of a special connection for me as well, because it's about the film. I don't know if you've ever seen this film, but Billy Liar.
I don't believe I have, actually. As a previous film student, I feel I'd need to write it down.
Honestly, watch it because it's great. It's a really funny film. And again, this is what I mean about like the Smiths, funny but sad. William, it was really nothing. About Billy Liar. Billy Liar is a character who can't seem to leave his hometown. It's reflected in the lyrics, the first lyrics. This town has dragged me down. The rain falls hard on a humdrum town. It's like he can't leave his own past or his own. He's in a prison of his own making, essentially. That film, and it was also a play as well. I think the play came first, to be honest, but the film made it.
It's the thespian of you coming through.
but that, I mean, for me, like, I did a monologue from that film.
Was that in Lambda, or was that just something that you did? Was it drama school?
It was to get a scholarship in drama school.
Wow.
Which I got, weirdly.
You did,
and I owe
which
it,
we will get to.
And I owe that to Billy Liar, and subsequently William, it was really nothing, because these songs also serve as a reminder of the things that inspired them. As I said, that
it's like every song is impactful in a different part of your life, and I feel like we can't really go forward without talking about the two major tracks of the album, the ones that even I know a fair amount about, which is This Charming Man, arguably their most famous song, and Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. Of those two, I would generally say that This Charming Man is the more well known.
Yes, but Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now was probably, for me, it's the one that started it all, really.
Well, carry on with that then. I'll go on to This Charming Man afterwards. But what is it about Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now that really resonates with you?
Well, it's more of, it was the first one I ever heard. It was a wet Wednesday afternoon.
Did it look like how it looks now outside?
No, it was dark.
Oh.
It was very dark.
I mean, I will point out today is a miserable day.
It is a miserable day. It's very Smith's day.
With a lot of pathetic fallacy going on.
But so it was a very wet, dark Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it was in November as well. It was, it's pretty much now, but like years and years in the past. And my dad had left me in the car to go and get fish and chips because he was,
on a Wednesday, not Friday.
It was Wednesday. I don't know why. I think we were celebrating something.
Absolute dream. Fish and chips
It
on
was.
Wednesday.
And it was in the age when we still had an iPod. You know, we still had an iPod. We don't really use them much now because, well, I don't use it because I tend to just use YouTube and buying music.
So that must
like
have
buying
been
music
what,
off,
2006, 2000? Was it the original iPod?
It was 2016.
Oh, really? And you still used an
and
iPod?
we still used an iPod, an iPod
I got
Classic.
very wrong on that.
An iPod Classic, you know, and this is exactly what I mean. For me, it was late. It was very late in my teenage years getting into this. But he'd left me in the car, and the iPod had all the music, all the old music on it that my parents liked. And as I said, they used to play me the Smiths, so they had it on their iPod. But they never played it to me when I was a teenager, only when I was a kid. Don't know why. Anyway, so I was just scrolling through the iPod. And then, all of a sudden, Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now comes on shuffle. As if, like, by the gods, it just got sent to me. And I listen and I'm like, damn, what is that?
This is something else.
What is that? And to be perfectly frank with you, I didn't even listen to the lyrics. I was just listening to the guitar and thinking, my God, I don't get it. How did he make that sound? You know, because like I'd heard a lot of music before, and most music you can hear the things that they're doing. You can hear when they're playing a certain chord, and you can sort of see past the illusion of how they made it.
You can decipher exactly what's going on.
Exactly, you know, it's more, they're more obvious. And when I was listening to it, I was just blown away. So that day I go home and I had a guitar. I owned a guitar. So I went home that day and I got my guitar out for like the first time in years. And the next day I sat down after school and fully just learnt Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now on the guitar. And for those of you who are guitar players, you'll know that is quite an achievement for somebody who doesn't really know how to play the guitar. It's like quite a difficult song, but I wasn't going to move until I had learnt Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. And it was the feeling of euphoria playing those first like 3 chords, you know, and realising that I could play that thing that I didn't know how to, the mystery of it. I could learn how to make this sound. It was an incredible feeling of learning that. And then you get into once I learnt it, you know, listening to the lyrics and just laughing because I was looking for a job and then I found a job, and Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. I mean, I was 16, so I'd never had a job really. I was just focusing on GCSEs and things like that. But it was so funny to me. After you listen to the music, the lyrics then got me, and I was like, man. But originally, when I was creating music that I wanted to make, I was just focused on guitar. I just wanted to be Johnny Marr, really. I just wanted to be Johnny Marr because he was the best. And not in the way of playing guitar like a million notes per minute or like solos that will take your face off. It was more subtle brilliance that
it was fluid, and so listenable. Not like you're listening to a guitar solo, but like you're just listening to something which you could listen to forever. Which his riffs, if he played that riff, you know, on Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, if he played the riffs on there, I could listen to them for hours. I couldn't say the same about like face melty guitar solos. Would you? Because I mean, when I was listening through these songs, I didn't get through all of it, but the ones that I did hear, the word that kept coming back was atmospheric.
My God.
That's how I would describe the sort of musical aura that the Smiths give off.
Yeah, and it's certainly their own atmosphere as well, just in terms of guitars, like Johnny Marr's choice to use certain guitars and to play certain chords. He uses a lot of major seventh chords, which they just add to the emotional context of the music and give them such a unique sound as well. And a lot of the stuff is played on 12 strings as well, which give it that jangly, which again just makes it more expansive. And he layers guitars as well. This is another thing which I would say that, you know, musicians can learn from the Smiths, is like layering guitars. I think Johnny Marr calls it the guitar orchestra. The guitarchestra. It's
guitarchestra.
like an orchestra, but with guitars.
That quote unquote word needs a bit of work, but
Yeah,
I know what he means.
It's a clunky word, but it fully encompasses what was so great about the music is that there's these layers of guitars which intertwine. Yeah, I know, like bands I listen to post Smiths, once I'd discovered the Smiths, like Radiohead and things, and like Grizzly Bear and people like that, do a similar thing where they have lots of layers of guitars interweaving and like breaking on each other and making new melodies within the melodies that within the counter melodies. You can sort of hear things which aren't there, which is, again, absolutely what you said, atmospheric. It's a great word to describe the Smiths in general, and especially these singles as well.
Well, the singles in turn, the other one, This Charming Man. I don't even know. I believe it was a single.
It was
when
a single.
Came out.
Yeah, it was a single.
In its popularity, and sort of, I think it was the fourth track. I don't think it was in the original album. Their self-titled, their first album. Can't remember exactly what track.
No,
it was sort of buried within the middle of the album.
Oh yeah, it's buried
quite
deep.
Do you think its popularity or the fact that it's so widespread, do you think that has impacted your love for that song specifically, or do you still think it's a very good part of the album?
It's a good part of the album, but I would say that like its popularity is something that makes it great. I mean, I heard again, it's one of my favourite films is The History Boys. Also, that was a play.
I've also never seen that one.
Great. It's a great film. It's a great play. Unfortunately, I don't think the play's running, so you'll just have to watch the film.
Watch the film.
But in the first 10 minutes of the film, This Charming Man plays. I love that film pre-listening to the Smiths. I never knew that I was listening to the Smiths during that film.
Wow.
And then I hear This Charming Man on Hatful of Hollow, and I'm like...
Suddenly it all clicks.
It's in History Boys. Like... The Smiths have soundtracked my life without me even listening to them. It was an incredible feeling. But the fact that I'd heard it so many times, almost unknowingly, it does make it this warm, safe feeling when I listen to it. And it's one of the less depressing Smith songs as well. It's one of the ones where it's actually just quite happy. And the lyrics are funny, again, and very quirky. Like, I would go out tonight, but I haven't got a stitch to wear. I've used that excuse on many an occasion. I don't have a stitch to wear, I can't go out. But they're less dark, which does make it one of the ones which is so listenable. It's so listenable.
It adds a bit of levity to the whole album.
Yeah. It's a bright track, and on Hatful of Hollow, it's track 4, which I think is absolutely well placed for This Charming Man. I don't think it. I kind of like it buried in the albums. I think it's one of the ones which breaks. It's the break in the clouds. But This Charming Man has been sort of ever present throughout my life, in many ways. I mean, when I went with you to get your camera, when you were buying a new camera.
God, that was years
ago. Years ago. But when you were buying your new camera, I at PC World, This Charming Man starts playing. And I knew that you'd made the right choice. It's funny because these songs, because I'd listened to them so much, they almost become yours. Like when you hear them on the radio, you're like, that's the song. That's the song.
You get attached to them.
Yeah, but it's almost like signs. Like if you hear it on the radio, you're like, yes, that's it. It's a sign. It's going to be a good day. This Charming Man played. What's the chances?
That is very strange because I do remember buying that camera and you were just sort of there.
Yeah.
We were making all these projects. We've been doing it for years, which we'll get into in the second part, but when I just said, do you want to come and buy the camera with me?
Yes.
And we were searching through different ones and picking out, I had the idea of the spec that I wanted to go for. I went with one of the Canon ones in the end. And as I was holding it and looking at it, I think that's when it started playing. I don't remember you showing any specific inclination to it at the time.
No,
but looking back, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, it was...
I've still got that camera.
It's
in there.
Yeah. Well, it's a good camera. Do you see what I mean? It's a good camera. You bought the right one. And that's because This Charming Man was playing on the radio. That's the only reason. But, that's the thing. It's also cements memories as well. I remember that because This Charming Man played. I don't know if I would have remembered going to PC World and buying a camera with you.
Back when it was PC World.
I don't think I would have remembered that if This Charming Man hadn't played. And that's the beauty of music, is it makes the memories more colourful. It makes it more meaningful. I mean, it was just buying a camera. Let's
It was.
be honest. It was just buying a camera. But for me, it was this sign, this magical event that, you know, Nick was buying a camera whilst this charming man. It sounds so stupid to say it, but
that's
true.
the kind of, it's the small things. It's those small little memories that you can latch onto, and this charming man, for example, is one of yours. I mean, when I was listening to Cold Front, it's been so many. Well, Cold Front was, I think, the whole album I have just memories of when when we were doing what was it? When we were doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
In Lower Sixth, so that was 2017 when I first found it, and I did, because I didn't have a part in the first half, I just spent it drawing, and I drew the album art of Cold Front, and that was when I was listening to it, and the whole album, it was literally just me drawing. It was just drawing an album that I liked. No one else cared. But I distinctly remember being in the drama department on that, near the back with the stained glass window.
Oh yeah,
where the little weird sofa thing was.
Yes,
and there was
the two red sofas.
And there was this small little desk in the middle. Everyone else was practicing, and my drama teacher hated me, so she didn't give me a role in the first half. So I just spent it doing fuck all. And I was like, okay, let's draw this album, and that's a very small memory in a generally not fun time that keeps me coming back to Cold Front anyway. And the same with when I was talking about Bearings, and a number of, I think it was Young Culture I was talking about when Kinda Over It came on, and I was on the ridge close to my house and just looking over, and it came on, and the sun was sort of slightly going down, it was cold, and it was just me walking home, but that song came on. And I now instantly, every time that song comes up, I think
it's just a beautiful memory. You know,
would you say This Charming Man makes you think of that moment?
It does make me think of that moment, you know, and it's weird that that's the moment it makes me think of. That, you know,
because it's so inconsequential,
so mundane, you know, like just going to PC world. But again, that is the magic of music. I mean, like the Smiths and bands which I really love, and tracks that I really love, just make me think, wow, isn't music great? Isn't it? It's just so great, like that you can turn even the worst memory or like most mundane memory into something semi-magical or miraculous. It was a miracle they played it, you know. And there's been countless other times when I've been in shops, or I've been on my way to somewhere and it's played, and I just, you know, it's like you can pretend you're in a film, although you're not pretending in the moment. You are in a film of your own life in that moment. Some tracks, I get the Smiths, Hatful of Hollow. A lot of the tracks, This Charming Man, as I said, it was in History Boys. They lend themselves to cinema. They lend themselves to that feeling of like you're in a film, which is, I think, maybe a fantasy way of living life, you know, a fantastical way of living life. Maybe it's not grounded in reality, but it's a bloody nice way to live life, pretending it's all a film.
It is, if only.
Yes.
One fun fact I found about This Charming Man is that the track didn't actually appear on the original UK release.
No, it
back
didn't.
In 1984.
Appeared on the US release. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was it appeared on as it was the first song on side B of the original US release, track 6, if I remember. And then the first UK CD in 1986 didn't include it, though all of the UK CDs sort of re-released after 1983 did include it. So I'm almost surprised by its popularity. Was it the US release that made it more popular, or
I don't know
if you know this?
I don't know. I think it was popular before they released it, and people would buy the album. This is just a theory because I obviously wasn't alive when this was happening.
The record age of -15.
Yep. But that's the thing. I think personally, I would have thought that people would have wanted it on the album. They'd heard it on Top of the Pops, and they'd be like, I bought the album. Where is it? Where is This Charming Man? Fun fact for you about the Hatful of Hollow version, that's actually called the London version, and it is a different version.
Is it really?
To the one that was a single and the one on the Smiths' self-titled album, The Smiths. But also, it's such a good version. If anything, it's for me, it's the better version. I hope people aren't going to crucify me in the comments. Do you have comments on Spotify?
I don't really know.
I don't know.
I can have people message me about it.
Well, I hope they don't crucify me saying, what are you talking about? The London version is trash.
Well,
it's not. It's brilliant. It's really brilliant.
The fact that people will even be talking about the podcast is enough for me to know it's doing
well, then I hope
well.
that works out.
Well, I appreciate that. But I love you talking about those little moments because we've had so many of them over the 10 to 12 years we've known each other. And there's I'm sure there's loads more you can talk
plenty,
about. But
yeah.
Are there any other songs in this track list that haven't been mentioned or have been mentioned that you have sort of an affiliation with in terms of one specific memory or like an anecdote or just an experience that really resonated with you that's sort of in conjunction with the track?
We have mentioned this before, but Please Please Let Me Get What I Want was the first song that I performed live ever, really, at Skinner's Got Talent. Yep, that.
What year was that?
It was 2017. So,
the same year?
Just a year after I'd heard it, you know. So, and the first song I'd ever played live. And I think I did a really good job of it, you know.
I don't remember if I watched that.
I don't think you did. I don't think you were there. But it's funny because I changed the lines because, you know, I'm such a poet. Because the lines are, see the life I've had can make a good man bad. And me, in typical fashion, said, see the marks I've had can make a good man bad. Referencing my schoolwork, my less
I didn't know
less
you
than
did
standard
that.
schoolwork.
Oh,
Yes, I did that. And
that's brilliant.
People did find it funny, and but yeah, it's please, please let me get what I want. You know, and I think for me, I'm so glad that was one of the ones I played. A lot of people have covered Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want, and a lot of people have done really great covers. But you know, I'm glad that I did my version of it. That for me was a really big deal because it was only a year really after I'd started playing and deciding what song to perform at Skinner's Got Talent. And this was before I was writing songs. I had written instrumental stuff on the guitar, which I think I played an instrumental. You know, one of my early ones, I'm Not Quiet, I'm Just Listening. I don't know if you remember that one.
So very vaguely.
It's actually a good one. It's a very good one.
Did you ever develop that into a proper song?
No, I didn't. I left it as it was. I was lazy. But Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want, I thought if it was almost the song which if anyone says, which song do you wish you wrote? Please, please let me get what I want. It says something about the desires of being human, you know, and everyone wants to get what they want. Let's be honest. And life often means that you never get what you want, or you seldom get what you want. So I think it speaks to everyone. It's one of those universal songs that I feel that everyone can relate to.
Do you think as a closing track it has any impact?
Oh, it has a lot of weight as a closing track, absolutely. And it was the first song that I'd ever heard which utilised the mandolin in a pop setting as well, which again, for somebody who was only just starting out writing music, I was like, what is that instrument? Mandolin. And you know, that's again musical development really helped me along with exploring other instruments, because I then picked up a mandolin in true copycat fashion,
which I have seen,
which you have seen. Exactly.
It's in your house. I haven't played that. I need to though.
And it's an underrated instrument. And it's the thing about the track, because we should talk you know, more in depth about these brilliant songs, is it's so melancholy. It's one of the few ones of the Smiths where the music doesn't offset the lyrics. They are one. The music is as sad and heart-wrenching as the lyrics. Almost if the lyrics weren't there, you would know that is a sad. It's going to be a sad song. It's going to be a gut-wrencher. But yeah, I'd say also out of all of them, that's probably one of the ones that I had on repeat the most. Again, it's so short. It's 2 minutes. It displays that you don't need to drag out this long song. I think when people are starting out in bands, they think that they need to write, you know, the next Stairway to Heaven. But Please, please let me get what I want. It's so concise, and I think that's something which I would like to say, like the consistency and conciseness of the Smiths is something which I feel does make them timeless, because they say everything that they need to say in under 3 minutes, which I think some songs can leave you wanting more or wanting to hear more, but Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want. It just says everything so beautifully.
We were talking earlier about how we respect certain shows that know when to end. I mentioned Gravity Falls that only had 2 seasons, which is one of my all-time favourite shows. BoJack Horseman as well had quite a contentious ending at season 6, but then didn't continue on after that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think people look back on songs that... I mean, there are good songs that are quite a bit more elongated. One of my personal favourites is Mallory Knox's She Took Into the Lake, which is about 7.5 minutes long. Really good song, by the way. You'd like it. But it doesn't feel 7.5 minutes long.
That's interesting.
The timing, it doesn't feel as long as it actually is. And it feels more concise than something, it's some 4-minute songs or 3-minute songs, just because it has a very finite story. You know exactly what you're listening to. And something like Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want has almost a level of instant gratification. Yes. Once you hear it, because I don't know exactly how it's, but just over 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Like 2:15.
And the fact that it's the final song as well ends it right there and then.
It's like a full stop.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's one of the key, well, according to you, one of the key reasons why it was so impactful on your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to mention the music, the chords are so simple. For this one, it uses very simple chords, very major chords. They're not necessarily doing all the minor sevenths and major sevenths, that Johnny Marr usually does, but using like G, and E minor and A minor, which is, when you're a beginner guitarist as well, is so useful, because I would say the reason why it's one of their most covered is because it's one of their easiest to play, and it's why I chose that one to play at the school, because I knew that I could play it well because it's slightly easier.
And just because a song is complicated doesn't mean that it's good.
Absolutely. In fact, I think the simpler the song, or certainly in this case, its simplicity, it makes it so poignant. If it was trying to be too much, or it was trying to do, trying to fill too much space almost with music, or trying to riff on so many lyrical ideas, it would take away from just the thought, please, please let me get what I want. It's just that is it. Really, the title says it all.
And the title, now that you've gone to that, the title itself, Hatful of Hollow, we discussed this earlier, because you actually tried to research what it meant. What's your opinion as to why it is called Hatful of Hollow? Do you think there's something underlying about it, or do you think it's a very face value title?
Well, I mean,
because it's not the name of any of the tracks, which is a very common thing for albums.
Yeah, it's just a hatful of hollow, hatful of nothing. A lot of people think it's called Hateful of Hollow.
I thought that as well.
Doesn't make any sense. I don't really know what that means, really. I don't know how people... But anyway, Hatful of Hollow, a hatful of nothing. You got nothing. That's what I think it means. It's the Smiths a lot sing about the emptiness of things, really, at the core of it. Is, not to sound too Debbie Downery, but how empty normal life is, and it can be funny, but more often than not, it's quite harrowing, really.
And that's a strange comparison to if the album is about the sort of depression that comes with the vast majority of life. It's actually the Smiths themselves that have made the mundane elements that much more memorable and interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's funny because earlier I said it's really funny, and it is. It is so funny, but I think that it's almost like laughing at the darkness. With some of the most depressed people are the absolute funniest people you could ever meet, because they've looked darkness in the eye, and the only way that you can cope with that is by laughing at it, because if you don't, you'd cry, obviously, as one of my friends used to say. But yeah, absolutely. And the titles are, I would say as well, the titles on this album are so different to other artists' titles. Longer. Please, please let me get what I want. This night has opened my eyes. William, it was really... They're almost sentences. And I feel that is an important hallmark of the Smiths, the longer, more impactful title. It almost sets it apart from all the other music out there. And I know you want to mention the record sleeve as well, which I feel is another thing which sets the Smiths apart. And this is why I think I would choose it as my most seminal album, the one that changed my life, because it wasn't just the first one. I mean, it was the first one, that made me really love music. But ultimately, the Smiths was more of a movement. It wasn't just a set of great songs. It was a movement of, it's okay, it's great to be different. And it's absolutely in the titles, it's in the way Morrissey dresses. Like all the pop stars back in the 80s, they would be wearing the shoulder pads and the glitter, and there's Morrissey in these glasses, like a quiff, and just like a shirt and jeans thing, which was so weird at the time. Obviously now we kind of think that's normal, but for the time it was obviously, you know, the turning up on top of the pops in normal clothes was just not a dumb thing. But the record sleeves as well, they were all scenes from old films.
Well, yeah, I think this was a cover of an unknown Fabrice Colette, I believe is the name.
Yes.
Funnily enough, I have no idea who that is.
Me neither.
So it makes sense.
But this is the great thing about them. Because they're all scenes from films, it just sets them apart on the record shelf. And it's why the Smiths really should... The covers require you to have them on vinyl, really. Because the small CD cover, or the download, it doesn't do the cover justice. But they are artworks in themselves. The oversaturated image of a film. And it sets them apart on the record shelf. You know that that's a Smiths record. Because you just know. Because it's just like every other Smiths record. And that's a thing which you... Like any young artist who's learning about music or who wants to do music, I feel... can learn from the Smiths that the only thing that matters is being distinct and being different from other people. Don't necessarily just be a knockoff of the next. Don't just be the next Beatles. You know what I mean? You've got to be just different. And even if you're bad, even if you're not musically great, if you're different, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I mean, the Smiths were musically great and they were lyrically great, but
and they were certainly different.
And they were certainly different. They had it all. But that's the thing that for me is like, and when you're young as well, it's a powerful thing to see this band being so different, being so. For when you're 16, you think that they're the most out there thing. Of course, there's way more artists who are much more out there and much more different and much more weird. But that's one thing about the Smiths is it's good to be different. You know, on the track, Accept Yourself. I feel that is a very meaningful track, almost for the whole band. Accept yourself. Be who you are gonna be. I know that Oscar Wilde said, Oscar Wilde, who Morrissey loves.
The famous quote, if you'd like to say it.
If you know it,
I know it was. Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken.
Who am I meant to be?
I think I may have not quoted that correctly, but I believe it's along the lines of everyone else is already taken.
Yes, yeah.
But that's really interesting you say that. It's a nice sentiment on how amidst all this darkness and the general melancholy of the album, there is a sense of acceptance and understanding who you are and the kind of person, the kind of artist you want to be.
Yeah, and it gives you the courage of expression. I mean, as well, like, don't be afraid to say... When you're writing lyrics and you're a new artist and you're trying to write songs or you want to write songs and, you know, you hear a lot of songs and they all sound the same. They all sound the same. It's all about love. It's all about, that's it really. Most songs are about love or sex or things like that. And they're very, very similar themes. But when you hear a Smith song, so track 6, Handsome Devil, one of the lines is, "Let me get my hands on your mammary glands." That's hilarious. That's hilarious. And also a terrible lyric, but at the same time so brilliant that it's almost inconceivable to have that on a record. Let me get my... for me, when I was listening to that, I was like, damn, that's hilarious. And it kind of blew my mind that someone could write those lyrics. Somebody could actually sit down, think of that and go, yeah, that'll do. That'll be funny.
Like that in track number 10 or
and that's, again, that's so important to hear that. Because I feel that, for me personally and my creation, my creativity and my creations, a lot of it has been following that path that the Smiths sort of whacked, they made this path for other artists to follow, to be different, to sit down and think of the lyrics that you actually are going to think of as well, and be yourself as well. give yourself your own artistic identity.
I'm glad you mentioned your work, because I was about to go on to that. But in terms of the titles, it sort of nicely flows into that, because there's a lot of modern day bands, especially in my pop punk scene, that have taken a similar kind of route with those titles. I was just going through Hot Mulligan released their pilot album in 2018, and they have tracks like Pluto Was Never Really a Planet Either, and How Do You Know It's Not Armadillo Shells, All You Wanted by Michael Branch. And there are a couple of others, I think A Day to Remember and Fall Out Boy and a number of other bands have used, A Day to Remember especially had very similar titles, The Downfall of Us All, If It Means a Lot to You, and I think they had one in there, What Separates Me From You was one of probably their best album for me, but they had two particular songs that, This Is the House That Doubt Built, which I thought was a very similar one, and I was going to say You Be Tails, I'll Be Sonic, but that's just silly in itself. But All Signs Point to Lauderdale, which in itself is a more geographical phrase. But do you think that the titles that the Smiths came up with, ones that are longer and in themselves have their own stories, do you think that has inspired modern day hardcore bands, punk bands, punk bands to do titles of that?
Absolutely.
Of that ilk?
I mean, like, oftentimes, I think as well, like nowadays, one of the reasons why people do the long title is because, frankly, it's less likely that other people are going to have that title. And that's important, especially on Spotify and things like these streaming services. Like, you search for a song, and if it's a one-word title, God, how many people are going to have a song called, like, I don't know,
I Love You.
I Love You. Yeah, I mean, that's not even a one, but loads of people will have that song. You know, I mean,
Surrender, or
even the silliest titles. Like, I bet you there's a song called Brunch, or like,
should we find out?
Or like Roof Tiles.
Brunch. There's an artist.
There's
called
an artist
Brunch.
called Brunch. There's loads.
There's at least
loads.
5 on that page alone.
I mean, and that's just a stupid example, of a song like a song title that shouldn't really even be a song title, and yet loads of people have written songs called Brunch. And I bet you there's like countless examples. If you're choosing a one-word title, it's just gonna fade into all the other titles, and things like long titles, the Smiths titles, definitely, they're so definitive that if you look them up, you're gonna find them.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a marketing. Not to like degrade it into just like advertising and marketing.
Or long titles are better.
But like long titles are better for finding a band, because music is oversaturated nowadays. And I think a lot of the people that you just mentioned, the pop punkers, they know this. And they know that if they're going to stand out, an audacious title is going to help them.
Well, a number of bands have been like that. The other two I wanted to mention specifically from A Day to Remember's Common Courtesy album, which is again one I really like. The two that really stand out were Life Lessons Learned the Hard Way, and probably my personal favourite, Same Book But Never the Same Page.
That's an interesting one.
It's an interesting title. But it's great because it links into your work, which now that we've spoken for an hour about the Smiths.
God, an hour.
Yeah.
I feel I haven't said enough about them.
Well, there will still be time. But with your work,
yes,
which I have used countless times and on several occasions, like we've done a lot of projects together. You've used very similar themes in your titles as well. You have Most Advice is Bad Advice from your 2021 split, and then Talking to Lampposts, which you did. I think we did that a couple of years ago now.
That was.
You've sort of mixed it up a bit there. So, for example, you have a one word. You have Almost, which is one of something like you were saying. Boff.
Yeah. That is a one word title.
A bit of a laugh. But then you've also got the penultimate song, It's As If It Never Snowed, in lowercase.
Exactly, and I think, again, that's the thing. I don't think one word titles are terrible. And if you're going to release an album, you have to have one of the titles which is long. And I absolutely agree that It's As If It Never Snowed. I don't know if anyone's going to call another song It's As If It Never Snowed. And again, I do believe that, going back to the Smiths, I do believe that is a direct influence or choice to do titles which are more sentence based, you know. And I know you're pulling up. Worse things have happened to better people.
Worse things have happened to better people. And obviously we met, 12 years ago. And we met at school, and you know you've written all these 10 years or so after we met. But do you still think that albums like Hatful of Hollow and some other albums like Radiohead, for example, but mainly Hatful and Hollow, do you think that albums like that are the reason that you've written songs like this and written titles like this? Do you think that is an exact copy, so to speak?
Sort of, yes. Because when you are starting to write, whoever, I think Noel Gallagher said this, quoting Noel Gallagher, my God. What comes out is essentially what you've been listening to. Like, I'm paraphrasing, of course. But what you listen to when you're young is what eventually defines what you play, because that's your reference point. As I said, the first song I really learned on guitar was Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. And my early stuff that I would write and play, yeah, it sounds like the Smiths. Of course it does. And that's the same for any artist. You look at any artist, they always sound like you mentioned Radiohead, for example. In their early years, they sound very Pixies inspired, which is great and fine. And I don't think that detracts from anything that they do. I can hear in Johnny Greenwood's guitar work a bit of, the Pixies. That's fine. It doesn't matter, because that's how you learn to write songs. You look at artists, you see what they're doing. As I said, you uncover the secret of how to make that sound. And then once you've got that secret down and you've nailed that, you go from there and you build into your own secrets. And then you learn how to make your own sounds. But the one thing I will say is it can't leave you. The Smiths will never, as I said, no matter how long I leave it, the Smiths are a part of my DNA. I'm going to be a Smiths fan for the rest of my life. There's never going to be a point in my life where I go, no, I don't really like the Smiths. There's a point now, I don't really listen to them. But the influence will always be there. I can't shake that, because it happened. It is the past now. But yeah, things like Most Advice is Bad Advice. I mean, I didn't consciously try and write that as like a Smiths title or anything like that. That was just the title I thought of. But I absolutely understand that because you listen to so much of one artist, or you get so deep into one sound, it manifests. Although that song mainly sounds like a kind of American-y, kind of Beckish song,
I've always thought about this because my brother always said, and we talked about this in the not previous episode, but just before, that what you listen to when you're younger, generally when you grow up, you will have one genre, quote unquote, that you will always stick with. That will be the thing that you listen to. You stop looking for new music. You start fixating on the stuff that you like. Now, having since done PunkStance and all this stuff, I've dabbled with a lot of things, but I know for a fact that pop punk will always be the thing that I like. And would you say, for you, with all the stuff you've done and all the stuff you've written, do you have a genre or just a general style that you would say is your favourite, or just one that?
Yeah, I would say personally, again, bringing it back to Hatful of Hollow, the great thing about the Smiths is they help you to discover other artists, other artwork, other poets, other plays, films. It's so rooted in culture that they're a great landing point. They're a great start to what you can then journey out and discover. Again, the next band I discovered was Radiohead in my musical development, which is obviously such a popular, oversubscribed band. Everyone loves Radiohead, great. But it's a good thing. But I would say that I don't like saying indie rock is my favourite, because I actually don't like a lot of indie rock. I think a lot of indie rock nowadays is boring. It's not what they were doing in the early days, where it was about being different from everyone was different. Everyone had to have a different sound. Now it's like, okay, you've got a guitar, have you got a distortion pedal? Great. Have you got a reverb pedal? Great. Okay, you're set. Just play some chords and sing about a girl who left you. All right, that's song done. And I feel that is so much of what. I'm not going to name any bands because I'm not, I don't know them, but I know that they exist.
Yeah.
And for me, music has always been about true self-expression, not copying necessarily. And again, that's what the Smiths taught me, essentially. And I just feel that nowadays, to say I like indie rock, or I like dream pop, or I like this, or I like that, it's just saying I like a set of the same songs. And I don't want to say that, because I really would say that I like people who don't do genre, really.
Wow.
Or who can do... As I mentioned Beck. You listen to a Beck album, you don't know really what you're going to get. He changes and evolves. And obviously, he doesn't even evolve as much as other artists, like David Bowie, for example. I mean, he evolves probably great. He's probably had an evolution greater than any artist. Or the Beatles, for example. They never got pigeonholed. And that is what I lament about in modern music. And when people do change, they make this big announcement. I mean, Dua Lipa's announced that she's going to go into psychedelic music now, and it's this big PR thing of like, I'm now this aesthetic.
I'm different.
It's like, it's so Instagram. I hate that. That's not what music's about. Music's about what's inside coming out, not about what's outside, rearranging it and then putting your name on it. And I think that that's something that is sorely missing in today's musical landscape, and why I listen to the Smiths and love them.
You've had a variety of records and EPs that you've done as well. We've worked on countless things.
There's been a lot.
You've got, your first album, Left Field, that was like an exclusive. We spent weeks on that, creating
the actual disc, and printing all the artwork and things.
The person in question, they still have it.
Yeah,
they've still got it. But you've had so many records, so many EPs. You had Shortchanged a couple of years ago. Talking to Lampposts, released April last year.
Yeah.
You had Typocast.
See You Tomorrow, that was a recent one.
See You Tomorrow, that was a recent one. Some of the titles in Typocast as well. You've got Sadness in a Bottle and Ish, and then in parentheses, Self-Help doesn't mean help yourself.
Yeah.
It transcends so many different albums, doesn't it? Colour Drained, I constantly feel like I'm not enough.
Yeah.
or Ripping the Sheds, The True Story.
The True Story. It was a true story.
A lot of parentheses. Automatic Pilot, Early Morning Stairs, Paint Over the Cracks, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know why I was doing that at the time, but like I think at the time I thought one title wasn't enough, and I just felt two was better, But yeah, absolutely. In fact, Typocast is a good one to mention, because that is something, that is an album which, you were directly involved in, so
I know every single track.
Exactly, and that is something which I do feel I was trying to build a musical identity. Every song has this thread, has this almost thematic. They're not. It's like Hatful in many senses. It is my Hatful of Hollow, because they are just singles. They're not really related to each other in any way, shape, or form. It's just a collection of songs. But absolutely, I do think that the titles. I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't. It's funny because when you've made something, at the time it makes so much sense, and then years down the line, you're like, I don't even remember making that decision. Like, did I make that decision?
There's even some smaller ones, like Out of the Woodwork.
Oh yes,
ages ago. Eggs in Moonshine from Left Field. Introspection and Isolation has always been one of my favourites of yours that's been around for a while. I think that's your first Spotify one as well.
Absolutely. If to be honest, if anyone is listening to this podcast and wants to check my music out, and who likes the Smiths as well, please check out Introspection and Isolation, because I'd say that's a good starting point for and shows as well, because as we were talking about the guitarchestra, I remember writing Introspection and Isolation, and I got a loop pedal. I got a loop pedal.
Well, I remember the picture, the album art, for lack of a better term, is you in the drama department with that stained glass that I mentioned in the back.
Absolutely,
it all comes together. And the with all of these records and all the EPs, singles you've done, I've got hidden ones in here in my.
You've got ones that haven't even come out.
That you just made and went. You have this.
Yeah.
See what happens. What would you say of those? Which one would you say encapsulates your true sound? What would you say of all the songs you've written? is the most Carlo Villa?
That is an incredible question, Nick. Oh my god.
Because you've written a lot. You've made a lot of songs, and all of them are great. And I've been intrinsically involved with 2 albums, technically the album art of another album. And you've had, you've got at least 40 to 50 songs.
Oh god.
What I've got.
Yeah.
Is there one song or one record that really says, this is who I am?
For a record, I would say Talking to Lampposts as a product, I was very pleased with that as an album. Again, it kind of it takes from the melancholy. It was a time when I wrote that at a time when a lot of people were leaving my life, because I'd just finished university, so you all go your separate ways in many ways. And I would say that something you always mention when you talk about my music on your Instagram page is that there is a loneliness to the music. And
I've known you a long time.
Yeah. I'd say loneliness is my stock in trade. It's like, that's the commodity.
In every sense.
Yeah, that's what I sell. And musically, I'd say that I was so happy with how, almost, I'd say that's one of the best songs that I've written. It's so it's, as I said, subtle. It's subtle. It's not trying to be too much. And again, that I feel makes it quite a listenable track. And to me, it's listenable anyway. I mean, but if I was to say a track that defines where I want to go or who I am at the moment, if I die owing money, then I've made a profit.
I did wonder about this one in your recent.
It's probably
See You Tomorrow, wasn't it?
One of the best I've got, because again, lyrically, it's different from what other people are doing at the moment, and it's not to big myself up too much, but I'm very happy. This is
exactly the time to big yourself up.
I'm very happy about the title. If I die owing money, then I've made a profit. It has a ring to it that I was very happy with, and it has a mandolin in it, bringing it back to please let me get what I want, in the same sort of vein of please let me get what I want. I didn't even think of that when I was writing it, but it comes out. That's how influential that album has been to me. But that's the thing. It's also I write a lot in 3/4 nowadays, which is waltz time, and I do a lot of 3/4 and 6/8 kind of songs, which I feel is also different to the normal 4/4 trudge of most music. Not that 4/4 is bad. I mean, it's great. But yeah, so if I was going to define it, it would be if I die owing money. Who would want to live forever? That's what I'm very happy with the lyrics of it. Yeah. Good effort.
I love hearing that you're so proud of your work, because so am I. I'm proud of a lot of the stuff we've done. Specifically, I was looking back about some of my Snapchat memories came up from 6 years ago. It was October of 2017. Almost the same time when I was listening to Cold Front as well. Very defining part of my life.
Yeah.
And that was when we made our first ever music video.
Yeah.
Not Even Curious.
Not Even Curious.
Now, I don't know how many people would know about this song, because I don't know if it's on your SoundCloud or any of, or on your.
I think it's on YouTube.
On
still.
YouTube, maybe
it is still on YouTube. I believe it might be in.
It might be on my old channel.
It might be in what I've titled the archive on my YouTube, where I've taken, because I had so many songs cluttering up my YouTube that I took them all and I put them into this archive thing. And if it's not on my YouTube, it's definitely in the archive, which you can access by going to the playlist section of my YouTube, which is if you type in Carlo Villa. But Not Even Curious was a turning point for me. And you, and funny enough, somebody that was in our drama group produced the song as well, which made me feel like I was collaborating properly, and it made me feel like I was almost in a band. I did the music video with you, I made the song with him, and it was a lovely time, and really, it was really.
It's always
it was a happy time, actually, despite all what we say about, oh god, yeah, sixth form was hard,
and it was,
or depressing, or we were lost. I don't I don't take anything away from that. But music, the music that I was listening to and that I made, it turns it into a happy memory. As I said before, it turns it into a happy memory. And I remember going around and filming. I don't even know if Not Even Curious is that good. We've developed so much from those pieces of work, but it's...
I distinctly remember one of the shots that I took. I was lying down and my feet are on the left side of the shot because I just started doing all this filmmaking. And I had my old channel and I'd started doing all these projects with you, and I'd done my own things, and that was when I had my calling. It's a very similar thing to you when you heard the Smiths, when we filmed that and we edited it through together, and I saw that final product that we'd put so much time into, and we'd added all those effects to make it look like this timely 1920s-esque.
It was a random video as well. It was so random. What we did was we just went out with the camera and filmed, and
there was no goal. We just went out for like 2 hours.
But in a way, I feel that what we did subsequently as well was exactly the same process of let's just see what we can create in 4 hours, 5 hours.
Well, we did 2 videos in one day, didn't we?
We did once, and to be honest,
not foreboding. Is it foreboding?
It was foreboding and Hyades.
Yes, I wondered if I got the name wrong, but it was foreboding.
Yeah, both one-word titles. My God, but
both in left field, funnily enough.
Both in left field. But the thing is, yeah, I would say that because we just went out with a camera and we set ourselves a time limit, we were very creative. Not necessarily good, but we were very creative with what we did with it. And I am very proud of the stuff that we did. And of course, it has the studenty feel of it, because we were young, of course, you know. But I would say that it all informs what we've done going forward, and I'm sure that we're going to make more stuff together.
Well, we were talking about it today.
And I look forward to what we do with that, because we're both much older now, and we've both... It's funny because I feel that like we've both got more of an idea of what we want to do, more of a vision. But when you're young, you don't need a vision because you've got so much slack as well. You've got so much slack. That's why it's okay to... not copy artists, but that's why it's okay to sound like, as I said, I sounded like the Smiths when I was, I very much, you can hear it profoundly in the music that I would write. But that's okay, and I feel that now we're both older, and we've moved on from maybe being influenced by things.
Those were some massive quotation marks you did there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't see that, but like, yeah, yeah. So of course, being influenced, air quotation marks. We've moved on from that, so what we come up with would hopefully be much more original and good, and people will. Because one thing which is annoying when you are starting out is being compared to people. That is quite annoying. When you get, I used to upload things to the internet. People be like, that sounds like this. And it's like, no, I mean, how do they know? Of course they know. But I feel that like both of us have sort of moved past that.
Well, you've had a lot of evolution since then. I mean, you went to after school and we'd done all these projects. You went to drama school to study acting. And music and all these things. Do you think that has impacted the way you look at your work and how you approach new tracks and just new projects?
Yes, I would say I definitely think it has. I think the best music and the best art is often multi-influenced. And I don't mean that like, you're influenced by Nirvana and the Beatles. I'm not saying that it's like you're influenced by just two bands. I mean, like, William, it was really nothing. Taking it back to Hatful of Hollow. Haven't brought them up in a while.
As we should.
But it's based on a play. And a lot of this stuff a lot of the great songs are influenced not necessarily by other artists, but they're influenced by poets, they're influenced by painters, sculptors, playwrights. And I feel that is something that I definitely learned at college, at university, at drama school, is that the greatest works of art, oftentimes, they have so much influence in them that you can't really tell where they're from. And that's what makes something so great. That's what makes something new, really, is when you take something from somewhere else and you prop it in a different art form. And all of a sudden people go, that's great, what is that? But it's actually just plopped over.
It's just very transferable.
Yeah. I also do think as well that one thing that drama school taught me, because it's very focused on on you and you know what, becoming a different character. It's almost egotistical, frankly. But what it does tell you to do is grip what you have and who you are and what you look like, and work with that. Like, use your style to become your own style. Do you know what I mean? It's like, don't try and be anyone else. I'm not going to be tall. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be tall, and I'm not going to be a metal guitarist, because that's not me. That's not in me. It's in me to be the guitarist or the songwriter that I am. And I think that that's something that I definitely learned at drama school. Use what you have. And that can be your experiences as well. I think that a lot of songs have been inspired by real events. Although, having said that, if you don't have any real events to go from, watching a film is a great thing to do, and just writing a song about a film. Because actually, I was thinking about this the other day, but really, not much happens in my life. Not much happens in most people's lives. We're all,
in the grand scheme,
just living, you know, one day to the next. And occasionally big things will happen, like a marriage or a birth, or like a disaster will happen. But most of the time it's just plain sailing. And that's the thing. I feel like I don't have to really have so many big events happening in my life, simply because, well, I've lived so many lives with the TV shows I've watched, with the films I've watched, with the plays I've watched, with the music I've listened to. Each, like, this night has opened my eyes. I haven't even experienced the world of abortion or anything like that, but I've heard the song and I can get a feeling of it. I've never experienced it. It's that, like, knowledge before experience thing, you know, in philosophy. But yeah, so if the more art you consume, the better. Just consume art. It's great. Art's great.
It is pretty good. I mean, I'd like to classify this as some level of art. And the way you worded that was very beautiful, actually, because you've had so many experiences. You've done things that I haven't. Going to drama school, writing all this music, and you've lived a completely different life to me, and yet we're so intertwined with the work that we do. Yeah. And we have done so much. We've done so many projects. We were talking about Washed Up, one of those little short films that was like a minute and a half.
That you'll probably never see.
You'll never see.
Or maybe in 50 years it will get its debut release.
But I think one of the closing moments for this specifically would be, of all the projects you've made, all the projects we've made, which are you most proud of? Which one would you say is the thing you look at and go, I'm really glad that I did that?
That is such a hard question to answer, simply because at the moment I'm working on something which I know is going to be my answer. I've got an album which I'm not going to even say the title.
Is this the one that comes out tomorrow?
It's not the one that comes out tomorrow. It's the one that's going to be, if I was going to, what you said, the defining work. I feel every artist is looking for that. I feel that is the purpose of creation, to perfect what you create. That is the journey. That is where you go. And I feel that not the next release, and maybe not even the release after that, but the next album, the next full-length album. I'm not going to say the title, but that's where I'm going. And I feel that is going to be it's such a cop-out answer. That is going to be my proudest project. But also, like, how many people say the next one? That's going to be my proudest. I mean, I'm super proud of things like Foreboding. I really like Foreboding.
I was considering we did that in a day.
Yeah, I really like that one. I have a soft spot for that one. And I really, really like See You Tomorrow as a piece of quirky music, 10 minutes in our EP. Brilliant. I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of pretty much everything I've done. As every artist should really be proud of the stuff they've done. Although I can understand that, like, sometimes you make something and then a week later you're like, why did I make that?
That's utter dog shit.
Terrible. But yeah, the next thing... Not to get, you know, not to use it as promotion, but keep them peeled, because the next couple of things I'm going to be doing will be, I hope, really great. Just really great. Hopefully embodying all the things that I love about bands, about artwork that I've seen. It will be a melting pot of essentially my time on Earth.
Your magnum opus.
My short time on Earth summed up. You know, yeah, hopefully a magnum opus. Again, I think that's what every artist wants. And, you know, I think that I'm at an age now where, like, I have to be shooting for that. Anything less than that would be, I wouldn't know why I'm bothering. That sounds dramatic, but, you know, yeah.
I understand what you mean, though.
And I hope that you will be involved with the project.
Sure.
In fact, I think you will be.
We were literally walking through town today, because you've never been to my flat, and you've never been to the surrounding towns, and I showed you, and I pointed out little things that, like, this would be a fun filming spot, and this would be... Because we were reminiscing about the actual album art for Talking to Lampposts.
Yeah.
And just how eerie, but just how good and how suitable it was for the album and the tonal shifts that it goes through.
Yeah, certainly sums up the music in a photo.
I'm really proud of it all as well, because I look at it from a completely different perspective. I look at it as a filmmaker, and then you look at it from your music, and I look at it as the sort of the creation of these little images. And something like Short-Lived, which I spent 4 hours editing, that little bit with the lorry at the beginning. But I was when I was done with it and we watched it through, I remember us looking at each other and went, yeah, that was worth it.
Yeah.
That looks fun.
To be honest, now you mentioned Short-Lived, in terms of video, I've got to say your editing, you are a really good editor.
Oh, thanks, mate.
I don't know if like the listeners should know that you are really good at editing.
Well, I've heard that the way I cut out certain stuff from the podcast sounds pretty fluid.
That's good.
Which I definitely don't do.
That's good.
It's all natural. But that's nice to hear, actually, because that I've always been very proud of the projects that we've done. Some of the projects I've made on my own, the editing... Like, that was what I kept telling you. That was what I wanted to do. Yeah. I wanted to be an editor of some kind.
Do you know, if you want... Yeah, if like... It's a job that would... You know, you'd be really great at.
I will try. But for now, like, I can even bring it back to this podcast. You know, I only started it, 2 months ago now or so? And this is only the 4th episode. But the general consensus I've had from people... and the kind of response I've had about the content and the kind of things we've talked about has been so gratifying. Because I think this, as much as podcasts are a dime a dozen and music is a dime, like, you know, I'm never going to run out of content to talk about if everyone has an album that really sticks with them.
It's true.
But what it allows is for people like you, who I already know a lot about, to really open up and talk about albums like Hatful of Hollow, one that I know very little about. And I can see a completely different side to people. It was the same with my brother the other week. Him talking about Lower Than Atlantis and his own personal history of walking home on his own and having this playlist and it being like 2 different albums, but from 2 different perspectives at 2 different ages. Like, you don't get that from anything else. And that's what I'm so proud of with this project, because I'm learning things about not just the music that they listen to, but about the people that listen to it.
Well, one thing I was going to say, actually, was it's funny because I feel like I've barely talked about the album. I've sat down and just said, yeah, they're great. Yeah, they're great. Aren't they great? The music, that's great. The lyrics, they're great. And that is true. But it's interesting because, like, I feel I've talked more about the moments that I remember the song playing. And in a way... that is just as important as how great the music is as well. And what you said about, like, you know, seeing people come alive talking about something that they really like, it's like, yeah, well, music is the defining thing of most... For me, music, if you wrote a blurb about who I was, it would just be some musical notes.
Multi-instrumentalist,
you know?
Carlo Villa.
It would just be tracks from people. It would, like, you could sum me up in music. And I think you can sum a lot of people up in music as well. We are it's funny because I don't know if I'm the product of the music I listen to. I don't know if I'm the personality that I am because I listen to the Smiths, or if it was the other way around. Would I have always been this person and the Smiths just were along for the ride and I like them because I'm me? Or am I me because I listen to the Smiths and I really like them? You know, I don't know which way it goes round, but, like, the music that we listen to is so impactful to the self and who we become and who we eventually make friends with. You're more likely to make friends with somebody with the same music taste as you, because when you're driving, you know, you can trust them with the aux cord. It's essentially...
That's so true.
It is so true. Like, the music that we listen to is...
So the person in the front seat gets a lot of power, and you have to rely on them picking the correct music.
But if you don't really like the same music, or you can't understand the same, because we have quite different music tastes. I appreciate your music taste a lot, and I hope that you appreciate mine.
Oh, of course I do.
Like,
but they are very inherently different.
But you know what? When I get into the car with you, and you want to play some of your tracks, your favourite tracks.
Well, we find some middle ground in there.
Yeah.
Because when I was playing, it was Previous Love, the band that I'm ridiculously into.
Very
at the
good
moment.
band.
They have a new song that's just come out that I'll show you later. I'll probably do a whole thing on them at some point.
You should,
well.
actually. Yeah.
And they're painfully underrated. But we have a balance.
Hmm.
Like, I can be inherently 2004 pop punk, which I like, and you can be your sort of indie folk rock that you generally go for.
It's a good descriptor.
And we find a middle ground in that, and I think that's what's... You don't have to have the same style.
No, not necessarily.
The vast majority of people that I like or hang out with don't care about the pop punk scene.
Yeah, although I would say the connector is the guitar. The guitar. Do you know what? Guitar music is what I would say I really like. That if I was going to say that...
Not a genre.
Just anything with a guitar that is played great. That's good enough for me, you know. And I can appreciate all forms of that.
And we've had a lot of discussions about the kind of music that you like and the kind of music I like. But to sum it all up...
Oh, here we go.
If we haven't done already.
The fourth summing up of stuff. Yeah, okay.
I'm putting it verbally now, so we know. Be it Hatful of Hollow, your own work, our projects. What is it that makes Hatful of Hollow so influential, and what is it about your life that it really sticks with? What is it about the Smiths and their compilation album that really sums it all up for you?
Okay, well, this is to sum it up succinctly.
As the Smiths have done their own album.
As the Smiths sum things up succinctly, I would say that what is so great about the Smiths and why they are so influential, and Hatful of Hollow specifically, is because life is bittersweet. And I would say that the Smiths music and the first couple of tracks I ever heard of Hatful of Hollow, Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, William, It Was Really Nothing, all of them in fact, just all of them, even the ones I skip.
Of which there are a couple. But even the ones I skip, they sum up the bittersweetness of life. And they remind us, or they remind me anyway, that you're not alone in thinking it's bittersweet. You're not alone. That's the main thing, actually, really. When you're a kid and you're depressed. when you're an adult and you're depressed.
When you're an adult and depressed, the music's there, and particularly sad music is there to kind of lend a hand and just say, yeah, same. And it's like...
That is beautifully succinct.
Yeah, same. It's like, yeah, actually that is...
We're all in this together.
We are literally all in the same boat. Just at different levels. Just at different levels of the boat. You know, some people have more, some people...
Some people have yachts.
Yeah,
some people have sailing boats.
Some people, pretty much everyone's life. One of the inevitable things in essentially everyone's life, if we live long enough, is disaster. It's true. It's true. You can't live life and not have something happen.
I think, in fact, it's reminded me of the quote that my brother said last time, which was, "You can't tell a story unless something goes wrong."
So true. How boring! How boring would it be if you told a story with no conflict, just people meeting and being happy? But that's the point. It's like life isn't about that. It's not about Nirvana. It's not the band. It's not about It's not about getting to that point where nothing bad happens. It's about getting through the bad and being great at the end of it. And the Smiths are one of those bands which are just like, yeah, if anyone's going to soundtrack that, if anyone is going to play the music for that, it's the Smiths, you know. And everyone's had bad experiences, and I will say that the Smiths were there for them, but they've also been there for the great ones as well. They've been there for the good experiences, and to me, that's why they're brilliant. That's why I love them, and that's why they're one of the best bands of the 80s. Oh, you thought I was going to say all time? No, they're the best bands of the 80s.
There's a whole other discussion to have of other decades to go from.
But seriously, like they are one of the best bands. I'd call them the Beatles of the 80s.
Wow.
If I was gonna,
be bold.
If I was gonna be bold and have like a you know, some sort of tagline slogan of like the Beatles of the 80s. That's what I think they are.
Wow. That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
Right at the end there. And I think you can't really finish off anything more than that, can you?
Oh no, I don't think that's the closing statement. I think that is it.
As much as you want to talk about the album indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
this
as I
will
said,
easily be one of the longer ones.
I feel like I barely talked about the album, but
that is in itself just how detailed and how impactful it is to you.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't think you could go over every track. You know, How Soon Is Now's great for its own reason. Everyone loves that one, and Hand in Glove, you know, it's great in its own way as well. But like, you know, we only have a certain amount of time, and I'm not going to deconstruct all the lyrics and all the music and stuff like that. But of the ones that I've talked about,
they're the most important.
To me, I think the memory of a song is more important than how good the song is itself. You know, and again, like most people, not to downgrade the song Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, but I know that a lot of people, that would be a skippable one for them because it's comicky. But for me, that's the most impactful one because it's the experience. And that's what music is really. It's just like liquified experience on a vinyl.
I like that.
You can have that one on
That's a hell of a way to end. Well, you know what? I can't thank you enough, actually, for talking about that.
It's been nice. Good luck editing. Good luck, mate.
It's going to take a few hours, I think.
I feel that this one you might have to edit down a bit.
Oh, that's fine. I don't mind. But there's so much good stuff that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
And I've ticked off everything that I wanted to ask you. And we've even talked about our own little history and our own projects as well.
Yeah, it was nice to kick around the old days because I do think that like this album for me was so intertwined with that period of my life when me and you first met and started doing all those projects that we almost couldn't talk about that stuff.
No.
Also free advertising. Thank you very much.
No, speaking of free advertising, obviously you've got a few projects coming up.
I'll plug one right now. The Cows Are Coming Home, or The Cows Have Come Home, I should say. That is the actual title. The Cows Have Come Home is out tomorrow. It's out tomorrow.
The day of recording.
Yeah, the day of the recording. So it will be out by the time this comes out. Check it out. It's really good. If you like the Smiths, you may like this.
What is it on your Bandcamp?
It's on my Bandcamp. It should be on YouTube as well. A couple of tracks will be released as like live versions, you know, on YouTube.
Are they from the Potting Shed?
No, they're not actually. They're from just my bedroom. That's quite sad. But actually, I might do a potting shed of one of them. Now you've said that, it makes me want to.
And there you go. I'm inspiring a generation of people. Well, that's brilliant, actually. I look forward to that. I'll have a listen to that tomorrow.
You will like it, actually.
But thank you very much. I'm going to move the mic over to me now.
Wonderful.
Just want to give a massive thank you to Carlo for coming in. That was an excellent conversation, actually. I'm really happy with that. That's gone well. It's going to take a while to edit the 1 hour 45 minutes that we've been talking.
I am sorry.
I've got to get you home. I know. But thank you very much for coming over. I'm sure you'll be back again talking about your own music in due course. And thank you guys once again for listening. It's been my first one with an artist who happens to be my friend of 10 years, but still. I'm really happy with this.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. So I won't keep you because it's already been too long. But again, thank you to Carlo, thank you to yourselves, and we'll have some brand new content, brand new albums that saved someone's life on PodStance, the PunkStance Podcast.
Thank you, PunkStance.
You are welcome.